I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story and welcome to Friday night. Tonight we're going to start with tolling. We have new numbers now on what it will likely cost to drive across the Columbia River from Portland to Vancouver and back. It's a big change, and it's coming in about a year and a half. That makes tolling the I-5 bridge our big story tonight. Now, for those of you who hate the idea of tolling, and yes, I did hear that moan through your TV, buckle up. It's coming whether you like it or not. When? Well, it now seems likely that it's going to start as early as the spring of 2026. But wait, you say, wait, the new bridge is not built, construction is not even started. Doesn't matter. The tolling is going to start on the old bridges to help pay for the new ones. So enjoy the next 18 months or so while you can, because then it's toll time. Still don't believe me? These are photos from WSDOT, the Washington Department of Transportation. It shows a recent visit they took to the bridge at the end of August. Why were they there? Well, because they brought along their tolling vendor to take a look at the current bridges to see where their tolling gantries or overhangs would go. They're looking for the best places to put them up. This week, the Washington and Oregon Transportation Commissions voted to advance these 4 tolling scenarios to the final level of detailed traffic and revenue analysis. That means these prices are not final, but they are definitely in the ballpark. When it comes to the final toll prices, the public will be able to give input starting next spring, and the final prices will be voted on by the Oregon and Washington Transportation Commissions next summer. If you didn't get a chance to see that, don't worry, we're going to bring it back. New tolling projects in Oregon are paused until January 2026 due to an order from Governor Kotek, but she specifically carved out the I-5 bridge project to be able to toll before that if needed. Now, thankfully, it appears they will wait to toll the current bridges until the spring of 2026. And before we dive into an explanation on those 4 scenarios we just showed you, let's take a step backward for a second, answer a question we often get from you. How was this tolling project authorized in the first place?
So the I-5 bridge is authorized for tolling by the state legislature of both Oregon and Washington. And I will speak here to the Washington piece. The Washington state legislature authorized tolling for the I-5 bridge replacement project in 2023. And this authorizes tolling on both the existing I-5 bridge as well as the replacement bridge. It also directs that toll revenue must be spent on construction, maintenance, and operations of the facility. So inclusive of any bonds that are sold, of course. It also prohibits tolling on the Washington portion of the I-205, as we know parallels I-5 in the Vancouver region to the east.
Yeah, so tolling's been coming for a while. By the way, that no tolling of the Washington side of I-205, that's an interesting wrinkle in all of this. One would imagine that once tolls start on the I-5 bridge, people are just going to jump to 205 to the east. When I sat down with the director of the Oregon Department of Transportation back in March, he told me Oregon does not have plans to toll 205. This week we asked ODOT if that still is the case, and this morning a spokesperson told us that's correct. Still no plans to toll I-205 on the Oregon side. So I think that bridge is going to be pretty darn busy in 2026. When it comes to Oregon authorizing tolling for the I-5 bridge, the State Transportation Commission will take a final vote in January. Seems like a foregone conclusion that it's going to be approved. But the law giving the state authority to toll the I-5 bridge actually stretches way back to the old project that never happened, the Columbia River crossing.
Our legislature in 2013 provided direction for the Columbia River crossing project that is still operative today. Like Washington, tolls are to be used to fund the project and have to meet the requirements for debt issued and must be for maintenance and operations of the project. There are also a couple other provisions that the tolls must consider traffic demand management. You will see in the scenarios we bring you that there are variable time of day toll rates that meet that requirement to help us manage demand. And there is a provision also that tolls have to be reduced after paying off construction debt. Does not say how much they have to be reduced by, just they should be reduced at that point. Does not require that they be removed, however.
Did you catch that last part? The law does not say that tolls have to be removed once the construction debt is paid off, just reduced. By how much? It's up to the Transportation Commissions. I'm going to bet the reduction is not very much. And by the way, the projection period that helps craft these tolling scenarios goes all the way out to the year 2060. I kid you not, 2060, decades from now. So once the tolls start, they're not going anywhere, at least for several decades. Okay, now we're going to look at what it would cost you to cross the I-5 bridge once tolling starts. There are 4 possible scenarios. Each is just a little bit different. Let's start with an explanation of number 1.
So scenario 1 has, I think, is the one that's a little bit different than the others in one aspect, and that is the truck toll multipliers. So scenario 1 has higher truck toll multipliers. Trucks, when they pay a multiple of the auto toll, sort of actually bring a larger share of the revenue than their traffic would suggest. And this has tractor trailers paying 4 times the base 2-axle auto toll in this example. And so what it allows is for lower general base toll rates for 2-axle autos. So our pre-completion rates here range from $1.55 to $3.20, and our post-completion rates range from $1.55 to $3.65. These rates all in constant $2026, so before applying any recurring escalation. And this scenario does look at 2.15% toll escalation per year, which is sort of a conservative measure of the projection for annual general price inflation. It uses a weekend toll. All of these scenarios have weekend tolls. They do vary by whether it's sort of a variability of 2 steps or 3 steps. So sort of a, low, middle, higher, or a lower and higher. This one has 2. And finally, it assumes that the low income discount program would be implemented when the new bridge opens.
All right, and before we move on, let's pause for a second. Did you hear that term, toll escalation? Another term for that would be automatic increase. They plan to increase the cost year after year. All of the scenarios include that escalation. And when we look at the post-completion toll rates, as in the rates when the bridge construction is finished, well, the numbers that you're going to see today do not include the toll escalation. That will be happening in the years during the construction. So those post-completion numbers are likely to be far lower than what the actual amount is that it's going to be charged. The modeling for these scenarios assumes the new bridge will be open by the year 2033, so about 8 years of construction, with that toll escalation bringing prices up just a little bit each year. All right, let's move on to tolling scenarios 2 and 3.
Scenarios 2 and 3 then apply a bit higher tolls. Scenario 3 has sort of the same toll rate structure, schedule, variability, both pre and post completion. Whereas scenario 2 does start with a little bit lower tolls pre-completion and then steps them up post-completion. But these 2, as well as the 4th scenario, have lower truck toll multipliers. So we're taking some of the burden away from freight in these by going with more modest truck toll multipliers of 1.5 and 3 here for modeling purposes. But basically the top toll would be 3 times the auto toll, which is consistent with the other facilities currently in operations in Washington State that allow heavy trucks. The top toll rate that the Washington State Transportation Commission has set there is 3 times that for 6 or more axles on a tractor trailer. The other difference between scenarios 2 and 3 is that the low-income toll program is assumed on scenario 3 to be implemented as soon as practical, whereas on scenario 2, it is assumed to open when the new bridge opens. And that is kind of reflecting the fact that the toll rates are stepping up on scenario 2 and that post-completion when the new bridge opens. And so that's when the proposed benefit for low-income users would jump in.
Okay, so big trucks pay a little bit less in those scenarios, in line with the formula that they pay for other tolls in Washington State now. But taking the burden away from big trucks means auto drivers would be making up the difference. And now let's get to the last scenario.
And then finally, scenario 4 looks at a higher set of toll rates from $2 to $4.70 in pre-completion. Same pattern in post-completion, but subject to the escalation. On this one, because we're starting with higher toll rates, the Bi-State Tolling Subcommittee agreed to maybe have a lower escalation expectation. So instead of 2.15% each year, this one assumes 3% every other year, or kind of every biennium, if you will. and then pairs that with that 50% low income discount to be implemented as soon as practical.
Interesting, don't you think? And yes, this audio is coming from one of the big bridge meetings. You may be wondering why that last scenario has the higher tolls pre and post completion. That's because that is the only scenario right now that's meant to help the project in case costs go up, which is certainly possible based on what we've seen in recent years. The bridge project's conceptual finance plan says tolling is expected to bring in $1.24 billion, which is what scenarios 1, 2, and 3 account for. But scenario 4 is, quote, aiming a little bit higher, around $1.6 billion. The committee says an updated cost estimate of the project is likely coming next summer, which should give us a better idea on those tolling numbers as well. And by the way, the team is looking at the possibility of 28 different construction contracts across the entire bridge project. So it's going to be spread around. It's not like one company is going to be tasked with doing everything. Here's a look at what's next for these tolling plans. The review of the 4 tolling scenarios will continue until next spring, and then the public input portion will happen in late spring before the final toll rates and policies are voted on and very likely approved by the Washington and Oregon Transportation Commissions. So that is a lot of information, I know, but you can handle that. What's going on in your mind, though, after learning more about the I-5 tolling plans? Too expensive? Going to limit your trips back and forth across the Columbia once they begin, or just the cost of doing business? As one viewer said, it's kind of like having a parking spot for 8 hours. It's going to cost. Let us know, will you? You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail. The number is 503-226-5090. Still to come now. You liked that we're fact-checking those political ads that you're bombarded with, but some of you don't like that false information is even allowed on the air in the first place. So why does KGW air ads that might contain false information? We'll explain the law behind political ads when the story returns. This week, we started up one of our favorite series, Political Ad Fact Checks. We take those ads that you're seeing all over your TV and we look into which claims are true and which are false and which are just kind of on the edge. We started with two ads focused on the race for Washington's 3rd congressional district, the rematch race between Representative Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and Joe Kent. They're running to represent Southwest Washington. If you want to see which parts of their ads are true and not quite true, you can check out the stories on our KGW YouTube channel. This series is always pretty popular, and we're planning to continue it with some other ads from now through Election Day. If you see an ad, by the way, that you want us to look into, send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. It's also helpful if you can tell us kind of about the time that the ad aired so that we can track it down. Now, one of the questions that we get over and over and over again when we fact check these ads is, wait a minute, how can you, in good conscience and as ethical journalists, allow ads with false information on your air in the first place? It's a good question. Lo and behold, we got that question several times this week from viewers. Marcy wrote in to say, why doesn't KGW verify and fact check these political ads before they're aired on KGW? All networks just want the money, and citizens are not aware networks air ads, whether truthful or not. If it's not true and verified, don't air it. Well, we appreciate you asking, and I agree, it is confusing. Here's the details, though. As journalists, we cannot air information on our news that we know to be false. That's great. And many commercials for consumer products can't air false information about the product. That's great, too. So why can political candidates do it? It comes down to our federal communications license. That's the license that KGW has from the government to actually broadcast our TV signal. FCC laws prohibit TV stations from refusing or censoring political ads from any legally qualified candidate. So that's tough. It's a First Amendment issue, they say. It's as says Dr. William Lee also. He's a journalism professor at the University of Georgia, because political speech is entitled to the greatest First Amendment protection.
Any effort to regulate political advertising would run up against a very strong First Amendment tradition where the Supreme Court simply believes that debate on public issues and public people should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open.
In fact, the law lets politicians say almost anything they want in a commercial. Their ads are regulated by the FCC, which applies just two rules. One is that all the candidates have to have the same opportunity to buy commercial time on the TV stations. And then number two, there's a prohibition on censorship, meaning candidates can say pretty much whatever they want. And the FCC generally does not ensure the accuracy of the statements. The idea is that if a candidate doesn't like what their opponent is saying about them, they're free to clear it up with their own ad.
A false factual statement could be subject to defamation. But again, the Supreme Court basically believes that the remedy for false statements in political speech is more speech.
Okay, only in rare circumstances can a TV station deny an ad from any candidate based on its contents. We have to give every candidate the same opportunity to buy ad time, and what they want to use that ad time for, pretty much up to them. And because they cannot be censored, there's not much of anything that we can do about it. Now, the candidates can duke it out amongst themselves in the legal system if they really are offended about what the other person said about them. And you know what? We're actually seeing that play out in court in Oregon right now. 2 years ago, Andrea Salinas' campaign ran an ad claiming that her opponent for Oregon's 6th congressional district, Mike Erickson, was charged with drug possession. He was pulled over in 2016 and arrested, and oxycodone was found in his car, but he was charged with driving under the influence and never charged with drug possession. He said the pill was his wife's. Erickson sued Salinas, who ended up winning that race, by the way, and now 2 years later, that lawsuit is still in the Court of Appeals, and the two are running a rematch election. So that's a big reason that we use our time here on The Story to fact check these ads for you, because legally, the station cannot refuse to air them. So again, if there's an ad that you have a question about, let us know. We really do enjoy digging into these. Here's the email address again, thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Now to current city politics. Current Portland City Commissioner and candidate for mayor Rene Gonzalez is seeing his name in the headlines a lot, and not necessarily for positive reasons. Yesterday, the city auditor's office announced the Gonzalez campaign violated campaign finance laws, namely because it publicly displayed one large campaign sign that did not include a paid for by disclaimer. Under city law, any sign that's 6 square feet or larger is required to disclose who paid for it. Commissioner Gonzalez got a warning letter for that. In a letter responding to the initial investigation inquiry, the Gonzalez campaign said that banner was outdated and left over from their old campaign headquarters. They also said the volunteer who put it up took it down as soon as the campaign's request, shortly after the complaint was filed. But that's not all for Commissioner Gonzalez. After deciding last month that the commissioner did not break campaign finance laws by using public money to spruce up his Wikipedia page, the city auditor's office has decided they're going to take a second look at that. The chief deputy auditor sent this letter to Gonzalez and his campaign on Wednesday, saying that the auditor had received new information that prompted them to reconsider their decision. This all surrounds $6,400 in taxpayer money that Gonzalez did spend to hire a New York-based company to help clean up his Wikipedia page back in March. And it's included efforts to remove a reference to a Portland Mercury article about Gonzalez thanking a member of a far-right group, Patriot Prayer, online for supporting him. And this edit, which was actually rejected, and reads, in December 2023, Gonzalez announced his candidacy for mayor of Portland on the platform of public safety, homelessness, drugs, and revitalizing the economy. Gonzalez's office did confirm that they used $6,400 to edit his wiki page. The auditor's office originally issued a finding of no violation after ending their investigation in mid-September, but they called it an exceedingly close call. They also referred the case to the Secretary of State to look into it more. Now the auditor's office is opening the case again. We reached out to Gonzalez's office for a comment on the investigation. They sent us back a statement which says the auditor's action yesterday is a procedural step that allows them to review the outcome of the public records request. We are familiar with those records, believe the auditor already had all of the material items in its possession, and do not believe the information contained in the public records request changed the fact training staff on how to address online misinformation about the commissioner and his policies is a legitimate use of city resources. Gonzalez has until October 9th to provide the auditor's office with any additional information relevant to the investigation. Then the auditor will issue their new decision on or before the end of the month, as Election Day is nearing. All right, we'll be right back. Well, the Portland Marathon is happening on Sunday, and I'm going to be running in it. I hope you are. And if you're running, you can still join in on the fun if you're not by cheering for your favorite running and joining the neighborhood cheer contest. Chris McGinnis has everything you need to know.
The 52nd annual Portland Marathon is this Sunday. About 9,000 runners will toe the starting line for the event, which includes a half marathon, a kids run, and new this year, a 10K.
It's a pretty cool addition to the lineup this year of races. The 10K kind of puts the Portland Marathon and all of its, glory within reach of somebody who maybe doesn't want to go a full marathon distance. The tour that runners make of the Portland neighborhoods really gives a up-close and personal look, a different kind of look at the neighborhoods that make Portland special.
Back for the 2024 edition, the popular Neighborhood Cheer Challenge. As voted by the runners, the top cheering crowds win prize money, up to $1,000 for their neighborhoods. Of course, that will mean some road closures. Most impactful, the Broadway Bridge, closed to all traffic on race day from 6:30 to 9 a.m., with lane closures ensuing on other bridges. And the I-5 northbound exit to Water Avenue will be closed much of the day as well.
Ah, yes, that'll be a lot of fun. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks for watching, but remember the story, our collective story, that never ends. I hope you have a great weekend. And if you're out running the Portland Marathon, I'll be the slow guy that you go past. And if you're cheering on the sidelines, please yell some encouragement. I may have a little bit of a limp when we come in on Monday, but you know what? It's going to be worth it. It's going to be a blast. I'll see you Monday night at 6:30.